So I'm delighted to have today with me my friend Janet Lowe, who is the leader of the Vectra Wealth Management Group. Vectra is an affiliate of Zions Bank Corporation, covers the state of Colorado, and is approximately $4 billion in assets. And Janet has been involved with the Wealth Management Group for the better part of 2 decades, as I recall. And I thought it would be interesting, Janet, for you to maybe start by giving us sort of the wide angle view of how wealth management has evolved at Vectra over the last, say 20 years.
I love the question, Ned. So thanks for asking. So wealth management is a new addition. When I started with the bank, you've indicated almost 2 decades ago, we were definitely on the private bank side. And private bank for me is limited or narrowed in on the banking products only. So helping clients with their operating accounts for their households, their lending needs, whatever that looks like. For me, wealth management opens up the conversation to have a broader conversation. As people's lives are more complicated these days, and especially with clients at the high net worth side, they've got lots more opportunities for fiscal responsibility and fiscal rewards. So being able to have a wider scope of lens of looking at what else we can do in that holistic approach for wealth management is really the space that we have gravitated to, which is a fun space to be in.
Well, it certainly is. And although private banking takes different forms in different organizations, it used to be primarily a lending function. If you go back 2 decades ago, that was pretty much the way it was in a lot of banks. Although it's evolved, as you say, and it's evolved in the direction of being a more holistic way of dealing with issues that include asset management, include some planning. And the conversation that I'd like to have with you today focuses primarily on business customers. Although I recognize there are other people who could be in the wealth management client base who are not business customers. But when you look at business customers, whether they're customers of the business banking group, smaller companies to middle market companies to larger corporate, what's the rationale for trying to do a good job of meeting the needs, the personal needs of these important commercial relationships?
So I look at it this way, those entrepreneurs and those running those commercial businesses, their focus needs to be every day on that business, and that's where they want their focus to be. And we're a great partner to be able to take care of the day-to-day banking for the personal side and being able to watch for what else should they be looking at. You mentioned planning. We had this discussion this week regarding a couple clients that, as they are growing their business, what's more complicated about that? Do they have legacy issues? They have kids that are joining the company. What else does that look like? And I think for me, that is, and our team, that's the fun space that we're in, is to be able to help clients think through what does that look like? Taking that burden off them, thinking about everything that comes with owning a business. If we can help them with this side of it and think about what does that look like? How do they leverage their balance sheet? What does that look like for the future? Tax mitigation in the future. That's that holistic view. And so we're a great partnership on those with our commercial partners to be able to help those clients. And we can take that burden from the client and also from the commercial lender.
Yeah, and I think that partnership is so critical because for a lot of business owners, particularly people that have been successful in building a business, some of these issues are probably more pressing and more top of mind than even some of the business issues. I remember years ago coming across a survey which was actually asking them the question, where do you spend more of your time, or what do you worry more about, your business's financials or your personal financials? And personal in the sense of things like retirement or estate planning or gifting to philanthropic causes. And it was interesting and surprising to a lot of commercial bankers that in this particular group, successful business owners, 2/3 of them said their personal banking issues were more pressing, at least at that point in time, which is kind of interesting. But go back to partnering. How can private bankers, wealth management partners work collaboratively with their commercial brethren?
I think the key piece that you just talked about is the partnership. So, making sure that they're truly a great partnership. And when I think about a great partnership, communication is the cornerstone to that. So how are they communicating with each other, and how are they communicating with the client, and making sure that both sides of the house, the commercial and the personal side with wealth management, are working seamlessly, I will call it, on a strategy that's really helping the client. So, the private banker keeping the commercial lender apprised of what they're doing, what kinds of strategies they're talking about. I do find that many of those business owners, they like having the conversation with two separate people. It kind of compartmentalizes it for themselves, which makes it a little bit easier for them to talk about. We do on the personal side. I had this again this week. It's been busy. Unfortunately, we have to talk about death as an opportunity. That is something that we all have going on in our lives at some point. And what does that look like? And I think that's for the private banker to take that piece on and be able to have that conversation. I think the commercial lenders will think about that. What's going to happen? What's the business continuity look like? And on the personal side, if we can help that strategy or that plan, both sides of the commercial and the personal relationship can be very well attuned to the owner of the company.
Yeah. Well, part of the challenge, I guess, in today's world is helping people anticipate what it is they could be foreseeing down the road. It's interesting. A lot of times people think that conversations, say around estate planning, for example, are things that take place later in life, when in fact, I think in my experience, the bankers who approach this early on, it's never too soon to broach some of the subjects about how people are thinking about long-term issues, which could include things like estate planning. I am curious, you mentioned the importance of communication, which I clearly understand. What would be an example of a best practice where, say, partners would be able to communicate more effectively? What have you seen works best?
I think, at the basics, it's keeping each other informed about conversations or changes in the business, what's happening. I think it's also the social side of it. We do a lot of entertaining. We take people to lunch. So are you including your partner? Is it a conversation that would benefit both parties? Or I have a commercial partner that they do an annual update with their company, and they invite in all of the C-suite and key players of that company to debrief the year. And they will invite us along, and they bring in, their various bank partners so that we can hear what happened in the company, what changes, were there personnel changes that may affect that owner. So that helps us from a communication standpoint, that we know what's going on, and that may change some of the conversations that we need to have. I think we've recently had some clients that have lost parents or had parents that have become ill. And the communication of knowing that that's going on both sides of the house is important, because the owner may need to step away for a while to take care of a personal issue. And if we've heard about it on the private bank side, because we're helping them with something, making sure that the commercial lender knows that that's going on as well, and vice versa.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you've impressed me over the years, Janet, as a sales manager. I think you're one of the best that I've run across. Could you give some coaching to other sales managers about what they can do? And this could be sales managers on the wealth side or sales managers on the commercial side, things that can be done to facilitate better collaboration.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. I think having conversation, it sounds simple, and I don't know how to make it sound more complicated, but having the conversation about a particular client, what is that client going through? What are their circumstances? And really just talking through what is, from a client's perspective. I think I try to put myself in the client's perspective and help whoever is on my banking side kind of walk through what would I be feeling as the client, or what would I be thinking, and trying to help them figure out, how do they have the conversation. Sometimes we have to have very difficult conversations. And I think it really doesn't come in and sound like a sales management tactic, but how will that conversation go? And some of these difficult conversations, what will it look like? And I'm not a big role play person, but I like having the conversation of, well, what if this happens? Or what if, they go in this direction? And I like to ask I'll call it the simple questions as the client and say, what are your answers going to be for that? Do you have an answer? What's your perspective of that? For me, I feel like that helps the banker put it into a different perspective of what am I going to think about? How do I want to plan differently? And I think part of it is just, I'll call it pre-planning. We all talk about it. So thinking about what your conversation is going to look like, what questions do you want to ask, and being prepared for what those answers might be, and going down that path, and then still knowing that the answer could be, gosh, that's a great question. Mm-hmm. I don't have a great answer from the banking side, or having the client say, I need to think about that. Because I'll go back to Ned, what you talked about earlier, what keeps the client awake at night? And I look at that as an opportunity. So same kinds of things on the conversation side of what could they say? What could be keeping them up at night? What do we know about them? To say what could be something that's troubling them, and how can we be providing a solution or a resource, or have we seen another company go through that we could make an introduction and allow them to work through that maybe together.
Yeah, I think the idea of helping people anticipate what a conversation might look like through pre-call conversation. It doesn't have to be role playing, but it's helping people refine their thinking and particularly their questioning is really important. It's also when two people are calling together in a joint calling situation, whether it's a private banker and a commercial banker, or a treasury management person and a wealth management person calling, the idea that the better they have thought through what the call is going to look like, the better they've thought through how they're going to interact, the more likely it is they'll have a successful outcome. So
oh, sorry, Ned, I was going to say one more thing too. I was talking about this in an earlier conversation this week of, I have a feeling we tend to think about products, and we like to talk about products, and we like to demonstrate our knowledge of what our products are and the benefits and how that's going to help somebody. I think for me, it's taking that to the relationship. So what does the relationship look like, and we've got products and services, but really looking at that relationship aspect and taking away the specific products as a solution. And I feel like we have a tendency to lean that direction and want to talk about our products, but I think you will appreciate this, but it's those discovery questions to find out more information from them, and then what's a possible solution, and talking to them in more of a conversational way instead of going into what we've been trained about products, features, and benefits.
Yeah, I think that's wise. If you talk too much about products, one, you're probably going to lose the client. But two, it's probably not going to surface some of the problems that you may be able to assist people with. Last question for you in terms of trying to raise the conversational competence of some of your partners. I mean, there's a part of me that says to be a successful commercial banker today, you've got to be able to talk at least at one level about the personal side of a business customer's life. Are there some recommendations you would make about how commercial bankers could get smarter about some of the things that your team focuses on?
Have a conversation with a private banker, take them along on a call, and your client may not ask some of those questions, but you could ask some of those questions and let your private banker situationally give some answers to that. Mm-hmm. Take a private banker to coffee and ask some questions. I think everybody likes to share what they've learned and what they know and what they've experienced in their career. So I look at it just like you would a discovery question with others that you want to find out about their business, doing the same. Also on the commercial lenders, it's, what is their personal situation? Can they run that through? Do they have a private banker that they feel comfortable in confiding in? And I'll call it confiding, but we all have parents. Many of us are dealing with aging parents. There's lots of split families. And I think a lot of those are the same types of personal issues a lot of our clients are working with or dealing with. And private bankers or wealth management experts have a lot of information that can be helpful in there. And I think taking somebody into that confidence and running your own scenario and saying, what would you do in this scenario? Or how would you, I've got an aging parent that I think has early onset dementia. What should we do to protect them and help them make this easier? Those are all types of things that we help clients with. So just that going from that personal side, or I've got a neighbor that's having this challenge, what would you suggest for them? I think those are some simple things.
I like that. And I think it's also a way for people to get to know and trust each other as partners as they go forward. Well, Janet, this has been great. I appreciate your taking the time to be part of this NedTalks. And I do wish you and your team well in 2024. It'll be an exciting year for a lot of reasons, but I hope it's a good one for you.
Thank you, Ned. I appreciate the time and appreciate your doing this with me.